And welcome into the RinkWise Podcast. I am Evan Marinofsky, joined today by the great Patrick Donnelly. Pat, what's up?
Not a whole lot. Fall's here. Fall golf is here. Even better. I'm fighting through something here. I don't know what it is, but maybe it was the 40 degrees on the first tee on Monday morning that got to me. But
see, you're a little cold. A little cold.
I think so. I don't quite know, but we're gonna power through. That's what hockey players do.
That's right. You gotta fight through the injuries. Yeah, anytime I spend a few hours in the rinks on the weekends, that Monday morning or the day after, the day that I'm not in the rink, I wake up and I've congested. So that's why it's important. Always sweatshirt in the car, extra layers. It matters. That's why I even wear my coat. Even in September and May, and because it's, I don't want to get sick. So, But now we're entering that time of year where everybody's getting sick. A lot of parents, I would assume, listen to this. And I assume a lot of your kids are in high school, but I'm guessing that when they were in elementary school, you were getting sick multiple times per winter, which is always fun. Like I remember my freshman year of college, first year in the dorms, I think I was sick like once a month, which was an adventure, so to speak.
The dorm cold was always like the worst thing ever for like 2 days.
Yes.
Completely knock you on your butt and you're just sitting there. Nothing you can do.
We'd go to the University Health Services and they'd just be like, take some Advil. You should try like sleeping a little bit more. Maybe, have some orange juice and vitamin C. Like, oh, thanks. Glad that my parents are going to get billed for this now. That was really helpful. But yeah, anyway, it's just us two today. It's just me and you. It's funny, parents, I often get parents to come up to me in rinks and say how much they love our podcast, but thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, all that stuff. But the biggest thing they say, we get right into it. We don't do a lot of,
we didn't do that today.
We didn't. We did a little bit today, because normally when we have a guest, we're not going to talk for 5 minutes and then be like, oh, all right, Jay Pandolfo, what do you think? Because that would be just a waste of his time. But yeah, today we were a little more liberal with shooting the breeze.
What does Felger call it? The grab ass?
Grab ass. No grab ass. We try not to do a lot of grab ass, but when it's just us two, why not do a little grab ass? Anyways, today we're going to cover a couple topics. A couple things that ran in the most recent magazine in September, October, which, by the way, shout out to Pat for some outstanding photography. Really good. I mean, like elite photography. And if you saw what we went through to get the Cole Iserman shots at BU, specifically the ones, I forget if it's in the magazine or not, Cole in front of the tee.
That one didn't make it in. I was kind of bummed. Actually, no, I think it did.
I thought it did.
Yeah, I was thinking of the James Higgins one, which was way more relaxed.
Yeah, James Higgins was it was a campus, not really a city atmosphere.
It's in the suburbs. It's not even in Boston.
It is the burbs. And thank you to both Cole and James and BU and BC for putting up with us. But phenomenal shoot. We went through a lot with that Cole Iserman thing in terms of just, people going by and framing everything right. It was all you. Me and
Evan having to tell me like, oh, got a biker coming, guys.
Like, please, like I'd stand in the bike lane and be like, I'm going to take a bike for Pat just to get this shot. I will do it. But it was a great magazine. Thank you to all who wrote for it, and obviously Pat for shooting the cover and a lot of the photos that are inside the magazine. We'll get to some girls hockey recruitment news because there's quite a bit of it over the last couple weeks. But first, a project that I did, how many recruits make it to college hockey? And for a long time, talking to assistant coaches, talking to head coaches in college, talking to just people in the rinks, I think most assume that the number of kids who commit and make it to college is so low. And I kind of felt the same way because, you and I, we see a lot of kids decommit. Those are the ones, Nicole Iserman decommitting from BU. You think, oh my God, there's another one. And I don't know, like when I was kind of telling you about the story, what were your sort of initial thoughts about where the numbers might lie?
Yeah, so it was probably just naivety on my part, but I thought it would have been a higher number of kids that commit and make it just because to me, you really only heard about big names decommitting. And, for whatever reason, I just thought, let's special cases, obviously special players and all that, but, probably more, I don't know if loyalty is the right word, because, when you're 16, making that decision, that's a massive decision. You're making it 2 years ahead of everyone else in your grade. So I don't think loyalty is the right word to say there, but I guess kind of, I don't know, honoring the commitment isn't right either, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like it doesn't, change, things wouldn't change as much for, an average Division I player as opposed to the Cole Eisermans of the world, but turns out it does.
Yeah. And again, I think like, so first of all, just a couple of like prefacing the whole situation. I only looked at kids for New England Division I colleges back to May of 2019 with the new rules. I think if we did this the prior 5 years and we did 2014, 2019, I think the number my guess would be the number would be like 60% make it.
Yeah, because that's when you had kids verbally, like, I've said this to you a couple times, but, when we were in middle school, Jake Wise was the talk of the town because, oh my God, it's 8th grade. He's already verbally committed to BU. Like, that was happening all the time.
That's a perfect example. Will Smith, ironically enough, I believe was committed to Northeastern on like April 30th of 2019. May 1st was when that rule went into play. So Northeastern kind of snagged him up right before they could. But so went back to 2019. And the other end of it was there are a lot of outstanding commits. There are a lot of kids who have yet to make it, who have yet to reach, collegiate age or, are still a junior. And they weren't really a part of a lot of the numbers. There were very few statistics they were a part of. So my guess is that for some of these in the next, I think monitoring this over the next 5 years is going to be fascinating as well. When we get to August 1 commits, we can sort of talk about that. But this was really kids who committed 2019, 2020, 21, and a little bit of 22. There were a couple 23 commits in there, but it was really those bunch of years. And so the first number, were you surprised by? I know you said you expected it to be a little higher, but 83.64% of players went to the college they committed to. I was still surprised by that. I thought it'd be much lower.
Yeah. I guess for what I was saying higher, I guess maybe like 85% is what I would have ballparked it at.
Yeah.
So I guess more or less it's kind of in line with what I was expecting. And I'm sure we'll get into the transfer numbers and all that, because that kind of goes in line with what I did in the magazine, just a little bit, where honestly,
a lot of it.
Our
projects actually lined up at the perfect time because I was like, hey, I've got all these transfer numbers.
Yes, you had a lot of legwork done for me, which was very appreciated. But I guess like if I want to just like go right into that, the transfer numbers, because, the story I did was Atlantic hockey, and, from the outside looking in is, me and you talking just day to day. We see the kid at AIC, Nils Wallstrom, has a phenomenal freshman season as a goalie last year. Transfers to Merrimack this year. Oh, that's another one in Atlantic hockey, gets poached by a hockey school, ECAC school, Big Ten school, what have you. Like, Carter Wilkie going to North Dakota, Tommy Scarfone from RIT. I don't remember where he committed. But just stories like that. And so we're looking at trying to talk to people on the inside. Is that really, the case? Or is it, just the attention is falling all on the kids leaving, which generally seemed to be the prevailing opinion from the folks I talked to. Because, you look at Holy Cross, who's done really well in the portal, and they get Liam McClinsky, who was a top 10 Hobie finalist last year. Sacred Heart got Mikey Adamson from UMass, who exploded as a sophomore last year and looks like a really key piece of their blue line. So there's a lot more success stories than there are, I guess, poaching stories. But those fly under the radar because, you don't really pay attention once the kid leaves the portal and goes somewhere else. And honestly, what surprised me the most was that, Holy Cross's numbers are a little inflated, AIC too, because they don't have a graduate program at all. So kids who are taking their COVID years and their graduate years have to leave automatically. Same thing goes for like Army and, Air Force, which are also in Atlantic. And then you look at the numbers of the transfer rates from the New England Atlantic schools compared to some of the New England schools in Hockey East, like BU and BC. Like BU, and I'm blanking on who it was here. I think BC had like 42% kids transfer compared to.
I can look. I'll make sure of that.
Yeah.
I still have my Google Sheets, which like opening back, people like a couple of college coaches have been like, oh, so you'll keep adding to that to keep track of the stats, right? And I'm like, I don't ever want to open that Google Sheets ever again. I spent hours and hours and hours just like name, date of birth, when they committed, team, and I'll open it for you though. I will dive back into it.
All right, yeah. So I got it here. At BC, 29.1% since 2019 transferred, 20% at BU. Northeastern, that's 28%. Providence, Merrimack, some others over 40%. UMass, UConn, Maine, over 30%. Quinnipiac, over 35%. You compare that to, AIC, 42%. Sacred Heart, 35%. Holy Cross, 27%. Bentley, 21%. It all kind of lines up, and it's all pretty much the same once you average it out and all that. I was surprised. I was expecting Atlantic's transfers to be way higher.
I was too. I thought the same thing, and I was surprised to hear some of the coaches, echoing or not echoing that same sentiment and being like, "No, we also get a lot of good kids," and it does make sense. Like I had a college coach tell me over the summer, because I was, being like, "Hey, like, doesn't it stink that anytime you have a really good player, like another school is going to come and take him?" And he's like, "Yeah, but everybody takes from everybody," and I think you see it with like Mikey Adamson with Sacred Heart and Liam McClinsky with Holy Cross, like. Yeah, those schools have definitely lost some kids, but they've also gained some kids. And so I think it does kind of come out in the wash. And it lines up with the number that I eventually got to, which was 28.66% of the players that made it to their college eventually transferred or left. So some of those kids just left college hockey or they went to club or whatever. But about 30%, which, again, some of the coaches I talked to, thought it'd be lower. Like Joel Beal from Providence said he thought it'd be closer to like 10%, because I think the national number of kids who transfer is around 10. It's like 13.2%, like regular students. So it's not surprising to see it. I didn't think it was surprising to see it at around 30%. And I think it's because like the transfer portal's huge. It's so big. And so you just expect a pretty high number.
Yeah, that's probably what I would have expected. And, before COVID and the transfer portal rules changed, I would have probably put it around 10% as well. But I mean, I would also expect that number to get even higher now that this year they removed the second. If you transfer a second or a third time, you don't have to sit out a year anymore. Because before this year, it was just, your first transfer, you don't have to sit out. Still have to for your second one. That's all gone now. So I think there's as much movement as there's already been, which has kind of been kind of a little ridiculous when you look at it. It's going to keep going. It's going to get bigger.
I want to see like a kid go in and do like freshman year, school 1, sophomore year 2, junior year, school 3. I want 4 different schools in 4 years. I think we need to see someone do that. I'll tell you this. There were some guys on this list in the research that were close, at least in terms of schools they'd committed to. There was one kid, I think from Lackland Getz, who he was committed to Union, ended up at BU, transferred to Michigan Tech, and will be at Holy Cross this season.
Yep.
And like, that is just the gauntlet of teams. And you know what? If that works, it works. Like if it takes you 3 tries to get the right spot, that is the benefit of this rule. Like you do get multiple chances. And I think, I don't think it's the worst thing because you are giving power to the players. Where it becomes difficult, and coaches can speak on this better than we can, but like where it becomes difficult is, player X is on the 4th line as a freshman and doesn't like it and is moving to a school where he's going to play a sophomore year. And I get it because you do only have 4 years. You want to maximize those. That's why a lot of kids stay in juniors longer. Like that rookies piece I put out for college hockey September 26th. A lot of 03s, a lot of 04s. Providence and BU and BC have, 05s and 06s. But like there are a lot of 03s and 04s that are staying in junior longer because why would I play on the 4th line or like not dress my freshman year and waste a full year when I could just stay in the USHL or the BCHL, play all the time, play in every situation and go in more experienced for my freshman year next year. So I think you're seeing that more and more. Other numbers, 15.23% of all commits had previous commitments. I don't know if I was surprised by this. I mean, I think we hear a lot of kids, switching their commitment, which then obviously means you had a prior commitment. but I didn't have a number in mind. So 15.23, I think, it was still kind of low. Maybe I would have thought it would be around like 20 to 25%. I'm curious what you thought.
I mean, it kind of lines up if 84% of the kids are making it to their original commitment, and then you have a remaining 16, 17% and change. I guess the math lines up, and it seems perfectly reasonable. Then whatever other percentage just is left, either goes juniors or, doesn't play college hockey or what have you. So I guess, if I hadn't seen the first number, I would have thought it would have been maybe a little high. And again, that's just because I came in thinking the original number of how many kids actually make it to their original commitment was higher.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's still, like Joe Howe from Yale said this, it's still over 1 in 10 kids who have had previous commitments and who switch. So, I mean, I think it's kind of up for interpretation. If you think that that's a lot, that's legitimate. And I think if you think that that's not a lot, it's also legitimate because, 1 in 10 is 10, it's 10%, and this was 15. So, like, it's not that many, but I do think that, a lot of kids, especially when you commit them young, and like, Joel Beal from Providence said this to me, and he said this to me late, kind of as deadline was approaching, so I didn't really have time to actually do this, but he's like, my guess is that if you did by age, you would see sort of a trend of, obviously more kids at 16 who committed 16 are either going to switch their commitment or not end up at the school they commit to versus 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Obviously, the closer you commit a kid to college, I think the higher percentage they have of making it, which again, I think that's true. I don't think that's like I would
totally agree.
A false thing. So we'll dive into a little bit deeper numbers here. So for August commits, this is something you and I hear all the time in August when kids do commit. You hear it from coaches, you hear it from parents. It's like, oh, just because they commit doesn't mean anything. That can change. They might not end up making it. So I was curious about this number. And again, it's hard. It was impossible for me to go back into 2019, 2020, 2021 to find the grades of all these kids. So I'm assuming most of these August commits are August, it's their first year being eligible to be verbally offered. 78.41% of those who committed in August ended up where they initially committed. This number, I think, is going to change the most. I think this number over the next 4 or 5 years is going to go down. I think right now, as I was doing as I was putting the stats together, like the number of August commits in 2019, 2020, 2021, there were not a ton. I mean, there were BC and BU had some, but it wasn't, a ton. Nowadays, like the amount of August commits that you see, I mean, Dartmouth is getting in on it. Providence is huge on it. Harvard's always been big on it, but like Maine, you have one coach, I think it was Joel Beal said it. He said, you're assuming that the top 10 kids in the country are going to commit on August 1. They're probably going to commit to the blue blood programs. They're on the right development path. They're probably national team players. There's probably a lower probability that maybe those kids fail or things change at the school. You don't want to call them safe commitments, but I think you're probably looking at the highest percentage of kids getting in. I think a lot of schools are seeing that and saying, why don't we commit 8 guys or let's commit 7? Those are the guys that are driving the program in the right direction. Let's keep going back to the well. And then he said, as that number grows to maybe the top 50 or 60 players in the country at 15 or 16 years old, you'll see a lot more variability in those kids actually ending up at school that they commit to. So I agree with that. I think that's probably going to end up what happens with that. What do you think for August?
Yeah. So sort of just going back to, my preconceived notion, it's a little lower than I would have guessed, but after, everything we've discussed already where, a lot of your August commitments might be younger kids, especially it's their first time, then it makes total sense that that number's lower than what I would have expected. Cause like we've said, first time through or, any number of factors and, things change and so can your commitment. So, and sort of what you were saying, I think just with, the amount of kids that are now committing in August and the point Joe Beal had, I would expect that number to get lower as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting though, like as much as I expect that number to get lower, if you're a college looking at that and you're saying, okay, like almost 80% of the kids who committed in August ended up where they committed. That doesn't mean that they're superstars, but they at least ended up at the school. Why not keep doing it? Like, why not try to commit as many kids as possible in August? Why not try to go for those top end kids when they're 15 and 16. And obviously a lot can change. A lot does change. Some of the most effective commits are ones you commit down the line. You commit them in junior. But again, like 80%, basically 80% of those kids in August, like, okay, it's an 8 and 10 chance that if you commit Casey Mutrin or Will Bent, I mean, those are the high end kids. But anybody, Indiana Grossbart at Dartmouth, like Dylan Dean at Maine, it's an 8 and 10 chance that those kids make it to those schools and are difference makers. I think you take that chance.
Yeah.
And so I think Beal is right in that you're seeing more and more schools look at that and say, why are we not doing that? Like, Sacred Heart committed a kid. And I think it might have been early September, which is still kind of technically August. But they, like you're seeing everybody get in on it. And maybe the bubble bursts.
Yeah.
That may be the problem.
The one flip side I look at that as is, more kids commit in August, and then kind of what we said where, you're 16, it's your first time through, maybe you're wherever you want it, like your just desires for where you want to play college hockey change, more kids decommit, then that number all of a sudden becomes 70%, 7 out of 10. Maybe it becomes 65%, and it's like 6 or 7 out of 10. So I think that's the flip side out of it, as more kids commit and potentially this number drops.
Well, we see this in NHL free agency. I think it was that 2016 summer where every contract turned out to be horrendous and everybody overpaid for everybody. And like that sort of changed the narrative of like, all right, NHL free agency, instead of trying to build your team and find these franchise pillars, why don't you just fill out, portions of your roster that you need? Don't overpay for any guys. And I don't think August 1 will ever be that. I don't think we'll ever, I think August 1 is meant for your BCs and your BUs to get their future stars, like no doubt. But I do think that when we will get to a point where multiple schools are committing 4 to 10 kids in August, and that's when I think when that percentage goes down, and if people want to continue doing it, they can, because some of those kids are going to hit. But naturally, some of those kids, are going to get caught up to in development. Goalies, goaltending. This was a funny one, or not a funny one. This is an interesting one. Yeah, I was laughing my ass off the whole time I was doing this. I couldn't stop laughing. 87.71% of goalies made it to their college commitment destination. I was shocked by this. I thought it'd be lower. I don't know why. I thought that, but I think it's because of my next number that I'll give. So I'll give the next number just to sort of contextualize it. 34% of those goalies transfer left. So that's why. I think the reason people think that 87% number is higher, scroll a little bit down the page and you'll see why. And I think to me, the biggest reason is goalies are used to competing. Yes. Goalies are used to having to battle for the net. And I think they understand, okay, I might not play a lot my freshman year, but once sophomore year comes, once junior year comes, I want to be playing a lot. And it's like quarterbacks in college football. Like every quarterback in college football, I feel like, is a transfer. I mean, Joe Burrow transferred, Baker Mayfield, like all these guys. And I think
unless you're Arch Manning.
Arch Manning, yes. Arch Manning is going to be at Texas forever. But that to me is the biggest thing. They know they're used to competing. They want to compete. They get to that school. They see, oh crap, there is a guy above me or there's a guy right behind me that they're bigger, they're more up on, and I've got to transfer.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head because, whatever you might think of the 87.7%, as soon as you see the 34% transfer, it just makes total sense. And plus, it's just goalie movement, even I feel like before the transfer portal rules changed, always seemed to sort of be the most in college hockey. And maybe that's just, me being an idiot and only really noticing the goalies.
No, I think you're right.
But I think it's like, especially, with the COVID fifth year and stuff, you have a kid who's a backup or a third string and, just for his fifth year, he's going to go transfer somebody else to somewhere else and be the backup. Or you have, one of the examples you had was TJ Semptimphelter, who's behind Devin Levi. He's not going to play over Devin Levi, as good as he was for that season when Levi was hurt and all, wherever. Once Levi's back, he's not going to play. Same thing for Vinny Duplessis leaving BU behind Drew Comesso. No problem for BU. They'll bring in Matthew Cron, who, especially if you're a blue blood school like that, you're always going to have, a kid like a Cron and a Brown or Merrimack, I don't know if they're technically a blue blood, but you got a kid like Walsherman at AIC who's always going to want to transfer to the bigger league and all that. And then you look at the backups in the third years and the third strings who are going to just go somewhere else for their fifth year and just be the backup again.
Yeah, and I also think like you look at Semtenfelder, Duplessis is a great example. Yeah, if they waited another year, yeah, they could have maybe started when Levi left the 2 years later. But that's a year off of college that's gone.
Yep.
Like that's the thing. I mean, if you like Semtenfelder, I think is the perfect example because he played well in that bean pot. He played well in the time that he got when Levi was hurt. Clearly could be a starter in college hockey. Why wait another full year? Now, ironically enough, he did go to Arizona State, started, I think, for 2 years, and is now on to North Dakota. So he's just moving up the ladder, baby. He's moving his way on up. But I get that. And this is like with prep school goalies, and this is a whole nother topic, this is a whole nother podcast. But like I'll see a prep school goalie who sits and it doesn't start until a senior year. And it's like, I get, obviously, like you like your school, you like that prep school. I get it. Your friends there. But if you're looking to play at the next level, what do you get out of sitting on the bench your sophomore and junior year or not playing a lot your junior year? Like to me, and like, Brian DeCord, I remember when I was doing that goalie story, felt the same way. You should be playing at least by your junior year in prep school. So I'm always surprised that there's not more of an urgency to move and go find a place to play.
Yeah. And even part of the movement is to like, if BU, I'll use BU as another example. They had Ottinger, his final year was my freshman year. My sophomore year, Comesso's still going to be at the development program. So who's going to fill the gap? It's going to be a grad transfer. You're going to get Sam Tucker from Yale. He's going to come and hold down the fort, play okay, not going to light the world on fire. But a lot of like, who was it? BC had, it wasn't Mitchell Gibson. He was at Harvard.
It was 2 years. It was right before Fowler came in.
Yeah, and Northeastern had the kid before between Caden Primo and Devin Levi. So there's always going to be a school that's going to be looking for an older kid, a senior or a grad transfer, to hold down the fort for a year or two before a Fowler comes in, before a Comesso comes in, before a Levi comes in.
Are you sure it wasn't Mitchell Gibson at BC?
No, he was for sure at Harvard because I just remember Mitchell Gibson's Twitter handle is Gibby Smalls, and it's
that's awesome.
It always had a little fan.
It was Mitch Benson. That's who
Yes.
it was.
Yeah,
Mitch Benson from Colgate.
Yes,
at BC. So that's that I was gonna say if I can't I'd be so mad if we couldn't figure that out. People like punching their steering wheels, being like, "Come on!" So finally, after goalies, only one number left. 5.4% of all commits eventually played Division III hockey. Again, like this number could change if and when, it feels like more when, not if, the CHL kids can play college hockey because,
yes.
People say, oh, when the CHL when kids can play from the CHL, like is Georgia's going to start a program in UCLA and UNC, and that might all happen.
Maybe
that's
like in 10 years.
That's not happening for like 10 years. Right. Yes. Like that's not happening for a while. So in that time, there are going to be a lot of kids who right now are maybe more Atlantic hockey commits who suddenly probably become Division III hockey commits or D3 players. So I could see that number maybe going up as kids commit and then the CHL floodgates open and schools say, all right, you know what? We're going to decommit you. Thanks, but we'll see you. And then you end up at a D3 school. And there's nothing wrong with that. Division III hockey is really good.
Yes.
You see this a lot. Kids deciding, hey, I don't want to go to junior. I want to go right to Babson and I want to play at Babson or in another NESCAC school. So I don't think I was really surprised by this number. There were, instances, I think I'd have to go back and look, of kids, August commits who ended up, eventually playing Division III, like way down the line. There were also kids who ended up playing club, which is also a great option. There's no harm in that. So yeah, I thought it was interesting that the Division III, that about 5% of kids, and I think it was James Marcoux from Harvard who said, there are probably kids playing Division I that should be playing Division III, and there are probably kids playing Division III that should be playing Division I, and yeah. That'll probably be how it always is. So nothing crazy on that end. But yeah, college hockey stats. Now we've got them. Now that we've got the numbers on the record. It's funny, when I was starting this project, I was like, maybe I'll do every college in the country. And then I realized how hard it was to just do like a conference. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna do every single college. If the Rink Live or someone wants to do, the Big Ten and the NCHC, they are more than welcome to do that. And by the way, shout out to Chris Heisenberg, who has all of the databases of these. Our good friend Pat Ethan Fuller was like, so did you go through and like go through every kid's social media? And I was like, no way, hell no, that would take me years. So shout out to Chris Heisenberg.
Imagine if New England Basketball Journal did something like this, but with kids who announce their offers or their visits. Because like we talked about it last pod about on social media with mainly basketball, but also a little bit football and baseball, where like you get a kid posting the screenshot of the school logo after a visit or a verbal offer. I took my admissions tour today.
Okay, great. I saw one that a kid from BC, or a kid that visited BC, put like a photo of him and Bill O'Brien. And it's like,
Boston
I don't know.
College University.
Yeah, Boston College University.
Those are the best.
I'm always surprised, like, and this is a whole other thing, but like, I don't know if I'd want to flaunt that I just visited. Like, no offense, but so what?
No, yeah,
like, that's
don't
great.
count the chickens until they've hatched.
Yeah, like announce it when it's big. It's like the the boy who cried wolf. Like that's great, all that. But come on, I want to just see the big thing. That matters most. But again, there's a lot of basketball sites, a lot of football sites that write a lot of stories about where those kids visit and who they get offers from. So I guess it's just different. Maybe someday we'll get to that in hockey. I don't know. But I feel like hockey kids.
Maybe once the SEC enters the fold.
Yes, when Georgia and Alabama are recruiting
and the
kids.
Pac-4.
Yes, like the Mutrin kid that comes along in like 2040 will be like, I'm blessed to have received an offer from the Alabama. Roll Crimson Tide. So maybe that'll be what happens. Except that kid will go to BC. So I don't think there's any chance of him going to Alabama. Speaking of college commitments, or what were you gonna say, Pat?
I was gonna say Craig Pantano was that Northeastern goalie between Clemo and Levi.
Okay, I don't remember him.
Yeah, well, I only remember him because of the 2019 Beanpot or 2020 Beanpot. The U lost and the whole world ended.
That's right. Yeah, we shut down for a full 2 years. You guys were so sensitive. We had to shut down stores, restaurants. The Fours across from the Garden is gone now. Anyway, speaking of college commits, we obviously have had a lot of boys college hockey commits on the website recently. But you have a girls' story coming in the coming days. Might be out by the time you listen to this. But there's been a lot of action with 07s and 08s with girls over the past 2 weeks. Let's start with 07s. Who've been the big 07 commits over the last couple weeks?
Yeah, so 07s and 08s are kind of what we expected to start rolling in quite a bit here after, there wasn't as big of an August 1st flurry as there was in the boys' side. For whatever reason, kids take.
Someday there will be. But
as far as like the last 2 weeks, it's kind of been picking up quite a bit for a lot of local prospects in 2 to 3 weeks. In the 2007s, some big ones. Greta Hulbig at Nobles is heading to Yale. Yale also got Evelyn Doyle at Dexter, two really good, power forward, two-way forward, 200-foot centers. Both had career seasons last year. Doyle led Dexter in scoring as a sophomore. Hulbig had a big breakout sophomore season at Nobles. She's going to be a huge part of that team this year. So two big ones for Yale in the 07s. And then BU and BC get a couple good ones. BC picks up Sarah Powers out of Andover. Just a player that is so fun to watch whenever you see her, because it's like 1,000 miles an hour, even though she's not like maybe the fastest player, just go, 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 go. And it's just an absolute menace, puts up pretty good production. I think if she wasn't tied for the leading goals at Andover last year, she was one of their top producers. Just a hell of a player to watch, super fun. I'd expect an even bigger year out of her this year. And then Quinn Taylor, who's at Naha, commits to BU. Someone who's been on the USA hockey radar quite a bit. Power forward, like good body, good size, kind of a, I haven't seen as much Naha as I probably should have at this point. But from what I have seen her at like the USA camps and from the Naha Labor Day showcase, just kind of a ton to handle around the net. and good, like pretty heavy shot. So I'd imagine like her game will keep rounding into form too. Yeah, a couple big 07s.
Yeah, the Yale makes out pretty good here with Holbig and Doyle. We just had a Doyle story run on the website in the latest magazine. But again, like I do wonder if and when the early August becomes a big thing. I don't know. Again, I'm not as familiar with how much there are agents on the girls' side. If there are agents big?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't like, just from my impressions so far, I don't think so. Someone can, if I'm wrong, please email me and tell me and set me straight.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah. But from what I can tell, I don't think so. But again, don't quote me on that.
Yeah, because I think agents on the boys' side, at least, have a pretty good handle on getting kids to commit earlier and helping kids sort of get ready prior to August 1. And like I was reading your story on what it's like to commit.
Yeah.
And girls really getting interest early in August, but taking their time.
Yes.
And I think that's something that should be on the boys' side too. You don't see that enough. Like Ryan Chudzinski right now is doing that. With the boy, I know his sister is really good with Dexter. You were writing about her, but
yes,
he's taking his time. Like he is, evaluating all his options, and I think that's a good thing. And I think you see that on the girls' side in waiting a bit, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and from when I did that girls recruiting story back in August in the previous magazine, a lot of what they talked about was sitting down with their parents and talking. And Katie Collins and at Loomis Chafee, who's a Princeton commit, her and her dad were basically the ones fielding all the calls and getting, like, they listened to this not this podcast, but another podcast, prepping them on what to know. And a lot of it was, I think True Thompson talked about talking to, because she was still at Little Caesars in Detroit before she came to New Hampton. She was talking to Craig Churchill at New Hampton. She was talking to coaches at Little Caesars, her parents, and her dad's in NHL front offices. So obviously probably fairly well versed on how to handle that. And then, it's a lot of it did seem like, parents and coaches more than agents.
Yeah. And I that has its pros and cons for sure. And then 08s. So there've been some news with some 08s, right, Pat?
Yeah, a handful of 08s, a big one. Tina Scalise at Groton is headed to Princeton.
That's a big get.
She's gonna be a junior this year. She was a very popular mention in our coaches survey last month. Obviously has left a huge impression on the coaches, and we've covered her quite a bit. Smaller in size, but again, just finds so many ways to impact the game in all three zones, especially, when I was at USA camp, the U18 select. You can tell a little overmatched size-wise, but still just, when the offense didn't come as easily, she's still making an impact in the defensive zone. Super smart player, pretty crafty, kind of slippery. So that's a good one for Princeton. Cornell, another good one, gets Carly Dan from Loomis. Really just an excellent defender and someone who, at the New England District camp back in May and, at the Wizard Showcase and all that, just super impressive. Especially defending in transition. She's a bigger body, not like plays pretty mean, keeps plays to the outside. So that's a great one for Cornell. Cassie Lobiser from Naha goes to Quinnipiac. Someone who wasn't on my radar a ton just because, like I said about Quinn Taylor, I haven't seen as much Naha as I should have. But speedy, skilled. Speed is just the first thing that stands out. She's effective on power play, penalty kill. And another Loomis player headed to Yale's Annie Schwartz. Had a solid season last year as a sophomore. I'd expect her production to tick up just a little bit. Good shot, good skater. He's been on USA radar a little bit. And then from Lovell is Victoria Hausberger going to Merrimack. Someone who I thought was awesome at the New England District camp back in May. And then a little bit from here and there over the summer. Just sort of the same thing as Carly Dan, just really mean, physical, great in transition, really crafty in the offensive zone, but defending in transition, great stick, forces plays to the outside, unafraid to play the body. Just a really good all-around defender so far.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously a lot of news there. I'd also be curious, like, when you can compare and contrast the girls and boys recruiting journeys. Obviously now with boys, your journey doesn't end when you're a senior in high school or prep school. You can get, recruited out of junior, and that could be, 1, 2, 3 years after. With girls, to me, it seems like, you've got just until your end of your senior year pretty much, right? Like, or even a post-grad year, to get recruited and to commit, which I don't know if maybe that puts more, I would assume that puts a little bit more pressure, on the girls. But again, good to see the amount of kids committing over the last bit of time.
Couple more before we switch to overtime. Emma Cerruti is another 08 that committed. She's headed to Wisconsin, plays at Shattuck. Big time. Really just an impressive skater all around. Every time, whether it was at district camps back in May and or the Mass Hockey Final 40, I should say, or the U18 Select or Wizard Showcase. Every time the puck's on her stick in transition, she makes a play. Super silky, Jeff Merrick always calls Nathan McKinnon a rhinoceros on skates, the closest thing we'll ever get. I don't know if that's quite what I'll say about Emma Cerruti, but just like kind of a bull in the china shop a little bit.
In the best way possible.
In the best way possible, especially leading the rush from the back end. Just a zone entry, masterpiece every time. Creates a ton of offense from the defensive zone. Really good skater and shifty. And then in 06, we'll mention a shout out to an MIA D1 commit is Caroline Doherty heading to Holy Cross. Super productive player at Hingham the last few years. And, good for her to get the D1 commitment to Holy Cross.
And she's an 06, right?
06, yes.
That's right. 06. So
should
shout
be
out
a
to
senior
her.
this year.
MIAA. We love to see that.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Overtime.
Special edition of Overtime today. I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions. And from the information that I derive about your thoughts about hockey and maybe some other things, we are going to, on the spot, gentlemen, create the RinkWise Podcast theme song. That's right. That's what's happening today. Might get a little help from robots.
Oh, my God.
Let's start with you, Evan. Who is either your favorite hockey player or the hockey player that you just think is the ultimate epitome of what hockey is all about?
Bro, I mean, obviously now the answer would be like Cale Makar, but growing up, my answer would be the guy growing up would be Zdeno Chara. Loved Chara. I grew up a defenseman, so you look up to him. He's so unnatural, but a fighter, a warrior, someone that just played through anything. He was big, tough, mean, skilled, good defenseman. He was just all around. That's everything you could want in a hockey player. Zdeno Chara had leadership. So I would say Zdeno Chara was like the model hockey player growing up for me.
Pretty much everyone literally looks up to Zdeno Chara. I mean,
this is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Pat, same question.
I'd go Patrice Bergeron because I was a forward and then eventually a center. Just tried to be really good at faceoffs because of him, and then just everything else that as a Bruins fan growing up.
Very good, acceptable answer. Tell us. We'll start with you with this one, Pat. if you had to describe your hockey playing style in just a couple of words, how would you describe it?
Penalty killing center. I knew my place.
Okay, penalty killing. That's oddly specific, but very good. Evan, same question.
This song is going to be incredible.
I know.
I would say it was kind of a do-it-all defenseman. I could kill penalties. I could, go on the power play. I could contribute offensively, defensively, all that stuff. So say do-it-all defenseman.
Do-it-all defenseman. Okay.
Yeah, that was what it was. So, yeah.
Evan, staying with you, if we were to make a movie about your life in hockey, who would portray you?
Oh, Brad Pitt. That's an easy one. No, I don't know. Portray me. I've actually never thought of that.
I think you're a little closer to Michael Cera than Brad Pitt, but
Michael Cera. Enough.
Wow.
Enough. That's ridiculous.
You want Brad Pitt? Who do you want? You can have anybody you want.
I don't know. But Michael Cera's a legend, though. I mean, whoever played Fogel, McLovin in Superbad, I think that's who I want.
Okay.
Him. Definitely him. Yeah.
We have our answer. That's very good. Same question to you, Pat.
Oh, geez. I don't know how I can follow that up. I don't know. Ben Affleck?
All right.
I have no idea.
All right.
Well, I would part of me would want to do not Dave Franco. Maybe it's Dave Franco. I don't know. A lot of those guys look the same, so I can never tell the difference. But
Dave
You're telling me
Franco?
not Seth Rogen?
James Franco?
Seth Rogen would be great. Maybe it's James Franco I was thinking of. Yeah, James Franco, not Dave Franco. I don't know who Dave Franco is.
It's his brother.
The other one.
He's also a very good actor, and he's just a little bit shorter. So
that goes to show how much I know about actors and movies and stuff. So,
well, the Rinkwise computer is working right now on this song. It is putting together a song called Rinkwise Rebels, and in just a moment, you're going to hear it, and I'll put the words on the screen so you get the full experience here. We fondly present to you Rinkwise Rebels. Take a listen.
Living on the night, talking showers right on top. Facing twilight shadows, doing all he stands. Resembling McLovin, but he ain't no nerdy dog. Defenseman on the ice, heavy heart in hand. Passing burning bright, the birds are on the depth. A penalty killing master slicing through the storm. Faces stone like Ben Affleck, firm to the left. Of a wrinkled warrior in uniform form. God's passion burning bright, the birds are on the depth. A penalty killing master slicing through the storm. Faces stone like Ben Affleck, firm to the left. Of a wrinkled warrior in uniform form. Rinkwise Rebels break the law in voices raw, rockin' wild. Legends, they keep reborn. Podcasters now grow wild. Evan shouts through airwaves, Sheriff's bones are steel. Skating like a phantom through the frigid night. Grit edge deep, the stories make it feel so real. Hits the bars with thunder, a sight to ignite. Patrick chimes with reverence for Bergeron's grace. Unseen in the chaos, a ghost in disguise. Smile like Affleck's carved on his face. Penalty killer's glory lights up the skies. Rinkwise Rebels break the law in voices raw, rockin' wild. Legends, they keep reborn. Podcasters now grow wild.
Well, there you go.
oh,
Wow.
it's electric. My favorite line in that, by the way, by far,
Mhm.
was Pat penalty kill master slicing through the storm.
Slicing through the
I
storm.
liked
Yeah.
Podcasters Now Gone Wild or whatever it was.
That goes
Podcasters
so
now
hard.
grown wild. Yeah.
No.
Is that that's the future of music making? Yes.
Well,
AI?
it depends on who you believe. The music industry has a lawsuit against Suno.com, the site which I used to create this song. So I don't know. So you got to use it while you can.
I like that. What's that website called?
Suno.com, not a sponsor of the show, but Suno.com. And It's a lot of fun to play with. You can type in your own lyrics if you want to, but who's got time for that? So as you saw, I just gave them a few factoids about you guys, and it did the rest, rhymed everything. And so, yeah, there you go. I thought I typed in rowdy rock for the style of the song, which I think is pretty, if you had to pick a style of music for hockey, wouldn't that be it?
I think it is.
It's, I mean,
rowdy rock. That's what you
Rowdy
what you want. That's like a like an old school like NHL 08 song that would play in the display menu.
right? Something by Blur, maybe.
Yes.
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 Well, very good. Back to you, Evan, to wrap things up. Glad you enjoyed the song.
Of course. I think the winner of overtime there is actually the listeners and us. I think it's everybody. Everybody's a winner there because the songs were so good.
You said it.
So yeah, that's Rinkwise this week. That's Patrick Donnelly. I'm Evan Marinofsky. We'll see ya at the rink.